The massive crystalline ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their surfaces reflecting the sunlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. For 3,000 years, the celestial hierarchy had performed this same ritual across countless worlds. The Zephyrians were beings of pure energy, capable of shifting between light and solid matter at will. When they spoke, their voices echoed inside the minds of those below, carrying the weight of divine authority. Lieutenant. Commander Park Ji-won stood deep beneath Seoul, in a command center that officially did not exist. The concrete walls were lined with screens showing radar contacts that moved unlike anything built by human hands. He had been watching these signals for 3 days, ever since the deep space monitoring stations first detected the alien fleet. Approaching Earth's solar system, sir, they're beginning their descent over major population centers. Staff Sergeant Kim Min-ho called out from his console. His voice was steady, but Park could see the tension in his shoulders. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. Just like the simulations predicted. Park nodded slowly. The simulations had been running for 20 years, ever since Dr. Lee Yuna first proposed her theory about alien contact. The chief xenobiologist had spent her career studying patterns of conquest throughout human history. She believed that any advanced species would target population centers first to maximize psychological impact. Show your power where the most people can see it. Make them afraid. Make them surrender without a fight. But humanity had never been good at surrendering. Send the signal, Park ordered. Let them know we're not going to kneel. The signal went. Out across encrypted channels, 2 military installations hidden around the globe. From the outside, they looked like ordinary buildings, warehouses, even shopping centers. But beneath their mundane facades lay weapons that had been designed for this exact moment. Humanity had been preparing for alien contact for decades, and their preparations had not been peaceful. Above the city of New York, the lead Zephyrian vessel began its transformation. The crystalline hull became transparent, revealing the glowing figure within. Commander Velthara manifested as a being of pure light, her form shifting between energy and matter. She had done this 1,000 times before on 1,000 different worlds. The pattern was always the same. Appear in the sky above their greatest cities. Let them see your divine power. Wait for them to fall to their knees in worship, but instead of screams and prayers, she heard something else. A low rumble that seemed to come from the Earth itself. Across the planet, hidden blast doors slid open. Camouflaged weapon systems emerged from underground bunkers. Missile silos that had been disguised as grain elevators opened like mechanical flowers. The first human response came from a battery of railguns hidden beneath Central Park. The projectiles moved at 15% of light speed, invisible streaks of metal that struck the Zephyrian ship before any defense could be raised. The alien vessel's shields flared bright blue. Holding against the impact but showing visible strain, Commander Velthara's perfect composure flickered for just a moment. In 3 millennia of conquest, no species had ever met their arrival with immediate violence. They always tried to communicate first, always asked questions. They always showed fear. But the humans showed something else entirely. They showed teeth. From his command center, Park watched the first exchange of fire with grim satisfaction. The aliens were powerful, but they were not invincible. Their energy shields could be overwhelmed with enough firepower, and humanity had spent the last 50 years building enough firepower to level continents. Target response from the London battery, reported Communications Officer Omingi. Direct hit on the vessel over Westminster. Shield integrity down to 60%. Moscow confirms engagement, added another operator. They're using the new quantum disruption warheads. Park allowed himself a cold smile. The quantum disruption warheads were Dr. Kong Taiwan's masterpiece. They didn't just explode, created pockets of unstable space-time that interfered with energy-based life forms. The aliens might be beings of pure light, but light still followed physical laws, and humanity had learned to break those laws. Above the cities, Zephyrians realized they were not facing a primitive species. The weapons hitting their ships were sophisticated, designed specifically to counter energy-based defenses. Someone had been studying them. Someone had been preparing. Commander Valthera sent out a telepathic pulse, trying to communicate with the minds below. But instead of the usual chaos of primitive thoughts, she found something organized, something cold and calculating. The human minds were linked in a way that reminded her of a military computer network. They were not panicking. They were coordinating. All units, weapons free, came a voice over human communication channels. Captain Cho Hyenwoo's fighter squadron screamed through the sky above Seoul, their missiles locked onto the glowing figure that hovered over the city. Remember, they bleed energy, not blood, but they can still die. The missiles struck in perfect coordination, overwhelming the aliens' personal shields. Commander Valthera's form flickered, her perfect light being, appearance showing cracks of darker energy. For the first time in her existence, she felt something she had never experienced before. She felt vulnerable. Across the globe, the pattern repeated. The Zephyrians had come expecting to find gods among primitives. Instead, they found predators, who had been waiting for prey to finally come within range. Commander Valthara had existed for over 2,000 years. And in all that time, she had never known failure. As the eldest of the celestial hierarchy, she possessed power that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Her radiant form could appear simultaneously above multiple worlds, a feat that required perfect control over quantum energy fields. She was, by any measure that mattered, a god. The ritual was always the same. Peer above their greatest cities in a blaze of divine light. Let them see power beyond their understanding. Wait for them to fall to their knees, accept their worship. Guide them into the cosmic order. She had done this exact same thing on over 1,000 worlds, and the pattern never varied until Earth above Seoul. Her luminous form materialized in the morning sky, casting shadows that moved in impossible directions. She expected the usual response, screaming, praying, perhaps some primitive attempts at communication. Instead, she heard the roar of jet engines approaching at attack speed. Captain Cho Hyenwoo pulled his fighter into a steep climb, his targeting computer already locked onto the glowing figure above the city. Behind him, 11 other pilots of the 7th Aerospace Defense Squadron followed in perfect formation. They had trained for this moment for 5 years, practicing attacks against holographic projections of energy beings. Dragon leader to all units. Hyenwoo spoke into his headset, his voice calm despite the situation. Target is confirmed. Energy signature matches the simulation profiles. Weapons are hot. His wingman, Lieutenant Park Soo-jin, checked her missile status. Dragon 2 ready. Quantum disruption warheads, armed and ready to fire. The missiles they carried were not ordinary weapons. Dr. Kang Taiwan had designed them specifically to combat energy-based life forms. Each warhead contained a small device that could create pockets of unstable spacetime, disrupting the quantum fields that allowed beings like the Zephyrians to maintain their energy forms. All units weapons-free. Hyenwoo, commanded as his fighter, screamed toward the glowing figure. Remember, they bleed energy, not blood, but they can still die. The first salvo of missiles launched simultaneously from all 12 fighters. The weapons moved faster than conventional rockets, their quantum drives allowing them to bend spacetime around their trajectory. Commander Valthara had only seconds to react. Her energy shields flared to life, a brilliant dome of protective force that should have been impenetrable to primitive weapons. But as the first missile struck, she felt something she had never experienced before. The warhead didn't just explode, it created a ripple in reality itself, a zone where her energy form became unstable. The shield held, but barely. Cracks of darker energy spread across its surface like fractures in glass. More missiles struck in rapid succession, each one creating another pocket of quantum instability. Her perfect, radiant form began to flicker. Above New York, London, Tokyo, and Moscow, the same scene played out. Zephyrian commanders who had expected worship found themselves under attack from weapons that seemed designed specifically to kill gods. The humans had somehow learned to weaponize the fundamental forces of reality itself. In the command bunker beneath Seoul, Communications Officer Omingi monitored alien transmissions with growing amazement. The quantum translation software was working perfectly. converting the aliens' telepathic communications into readable text on her screen. "Sir, they're confused," she reported to Lieutenant Commander Park Ji-won. "They keep asking why we're not surrendering. One of them just transmitted, 'This is not how the pattern works.' They should be afraid." Park studied the tactical display, watching as human forces engaged alien vessels across the globe. The aliens were powerful, but they were also predictable. They had followed the same strategy for 3,000 years, and humanity had built their entire defense around exploiting that predictability. "What else are they saying?" Park asked. "They're requesting instructions from their fleet command. They don't understand why we're attacking instead of worshipping. One transmission says, 'The primitives are using weapons that should not exist.' How do they know our weaknesses?" Park allowed himself a cold smile, because they forgot that predators don't worship their prey. Above Seoul, Commander Velthara's form was beginning to destabilize. Each quantum disruption warhead had created a zone where her energy matrix couldn't maintain coherence. She was being forced to concentrate more and more power just to keep her physical manifestation stable. Captain Heinwoo's fighter came around for another attack run. "Dragon Leader to base. Target is showing signs of structural instability. Recommend concentrated fire on the same position," confirmed Dragon Leader. "All units, focus fire on the primary target." The second wave of missiles struck the exact same. Spot on Commander Velthara's failing shields. The accumulated quantum disruption finally overwhelmed her defenses. Her shield collapsed entirely, leaving her energy form exposed to conventional weapons. For the first time in 2,000 years, Commander Velthara felt pain. The sensation was so alien to her that she couldn't even process it at first. Her radiant form flickered and dimmed as coherent energy became chaotic plasma. "Impossible," she transmitted to her fleet. "They have weapons that can wound us." "Can primitives wound the divine?" The answer came from Fleet Admiral Kim Dae-ho, monitoring the battle from his command ship in orbit. His voice was broadcast on open frequencies, so all the aliens could hear. "Because we spent 50 years learning how to kill gods," he said simply. "And today, we graduate." Captain Lim Sajin crouched behind the twisted remains of what had once been a shopping mall in Busan. The Zephyrian strike force had landed here 6 hours ago, thinking they could establish a forward base in the city center. They had made a fatal error in judgment. They had never fought humans in an urban environment before. The aliens could manipulate matter at the molecular level, reshaping concrete and steel like clay. But they had never faced an enemy that could turn every building into a fortress and every street into a killing field. Seojin's urban warfare specialists had been preparing for this exact scenario for years. "Contact 200 meters northeast," whispered Private Kim Jae through his radio. At 3 energy signatures moving through the department store. Seojin studied the tactical display on his wrist computer. Zephyrians were moving in a standard formation, confident in their superior technology. They had no idea that every building in the district had been rigged with quantum disruption mines months ago. "Let them get closer," Seojin ordered. "Remember, they're strongest when they're fully energy, weakest when they're transitioning between states." The first Zephyrian scout emerged from the building, its form shimmering between light and solid matter. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like watching lightning take the shape of a person. But beauty wouldn't save it from what was coming. Corporal Han Soyoung lay flat on a rooftop 3 blocks away, her eye pressed to the scope of her modified sniper rifle. The weapon didn't fire bullets. It fired concentrated pulses of quantum disruption energy. Each shot could destabilize an energy being's molecular structure for exactly 2.3 seconds, long enough to make them vulnerable to conventional weapons. "Target acquired," she whispered into her radio. Taking the shot, the pulse hit the Zephyrian scout in the center of its glowing form. The being's perfect energy matrix immediately began to fluctuate. Its radiant appearance flickered like a broken light bulb. For just over 2 seconds, it became something between energy and matter, vulnerable to physical attack. That was all the time Seojin needed. The conventional explosive he had placed in the building's foundation detonated with perfect timing. The shockwave caught the destabilized alien and tore its partially solid form apart. The first Zephyrian scout died in a burst of chaotic energy. "They're learning," Soyoung reported, watching through her scope as the remaining two scouts immediately changed their formation, but were learning faster. The aliens were adapting to human tactics, but they were adapting like generals, not like guerrilla fighters. They thought in terms of large-scale strategy and overwhelming force. Humans thought in terms of ambush and assassination, 200 kilometers away. In an underground laboratory beneath the city of Daegu, Dr. Kong Taiwan worked frantically over a piece of captured Zephyrian technology. The device looked like a crystal sculpture, but it contained power systems that could reshape matter at the atomic level. He wasn't trying to understand it. He was trying to weaponize it. Their energy manipulation follows quantum principles, he explained to his team of engineers. But all quantum systems have resonance frequencies. If we can destabilize their quantum coherence, we can force them into matter states where conventional weapons become effective. His assistant, Dr. Park Min-soo, studied the readouts from their latest test. The frequency modulation is working. We can create disruption fields that last up to 5 seconds now. That's more than enough time for a kill shot. "Good, Taiwan," said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "How many of the new disruption grenades can we produce?" 50 per day with our current setup. But if we can get more of their technology to reverse engineer, we could increase that to 200 per day. The breakthrough they needed came from an unexpected source. Sergeant Major Yoon Jie had been leading a reconnaissance mission in the ruins of Gwangju when her team encountered a wounded Zephyrian. The being had been caught in a quantum disruption field and was stuck in a partially solid state, unable to return to pure energy. Instead of killing it immediately, Jie made a decision that would change the course of the war. She ordered her team to capture the alien alive. The interrogation took place in a secure facility beneath Seoul. The Zephyrian, who called itself Subcommander Thelanara, was held in a specially designed cell that prevented it from returning to full energy form. It was the first time in galactic history that a member of the celestial hierarchy had been taken prisoner. "You cannot hold divine beings," Thelanara said, its voice echoing inside the minds of everyone in the room. "We are eternal. We are beyond your understanding." Jie sat across from the creature, her expression calm. "You're not divine. You're just aliens with fancy technology. And we're very good at taking apart things we don't understand." The interrogation lasted for 3 days. Jie used techniques that had been developed for questioning human prisoners, but adapted for a being that communicated through telepathy. She offered the alien food it couldn't eat, comfort it couldn't feel, and freedom it couldn't have. Finally, on the 3rd day, Thelanara revealed something crucial. "You do not understand the risk you take," it said. "Our manifestation process has phases. There is a moment when we are neither fully energy nor fully matter. In that moment, we are vulnerable to forces that affect both states simultaneously." "Oh, gee." Leaned forward. "How long does this vulnerable moment last?" 0.7 seconds during materialization. 0.9 seconds during dematerialization. It was exactly the information humanity needed. Within hours, the data was transmitted to every military unit on Earth. The Zephyrians had a critical weakness. Now humanity knew how to exploit it. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrians first arrived at Earth, expecting another easy conquest. Instead, they found themselves retreating to orbital platforms, watching their forces dwindle with each passing day. What should have been a routine subjugation had become their worst nightmare. Commander Velthara stood in the bridge of her flagship, staring at the blue planet below. Her once perfect form now bore visible scars, dark lines of disrupted energy that pulsed with chaotic light. Each scar was a reminder of humanity's weapons, proof that even beings of pure energy could be wounded. "Fleet status report," she commanded, her telepathic voice carrying undertones of something she had never experienced before, doubt. 37% of our scout ships have been destroyed," reported Subcommander Kelthor. "The humans are hunting us. They know where we will be before we arrive." Velthara's energy form flickered with anger. "Impossible," We are the celestial hierarchy. We do not flee from primitives, but the evidence was undeniable. The humans had somehow learned to predict their movements, to anticipate their tactics. Every time a Zephyrian strike force descended to the planet's surface, human forces were already waiting for them. In his command center, deep beneath Seoul, Major General Park Sun-ho studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. The alien movement patterns were becoming clearer every day. After months of combat, he had learned to think like his enemy, the predictable. He explained to his staff officers. They think like gods, not like soldiers. They've never had to adapt to an enemy that adapts faster than they do. Colonel Bae Jung-sik pointed to the orbital tracking display. 3 more scout ships are moving into position over the Pacific. Same formation as last time. Same response, Park ordered. Vector the submarine squadrons to intercept positions. Launch the orbital interceptors from the hidden platforms. The Zephyrians still didn't know that humanity had built secret military installations throughout the solar system. Platforms disguised as asteroids, weapons hidden in the rings of Saturn, entire fleets of ships camouflaged as space debris. The aliens focused on Earth. Humanity had been preparing for a much larger conflict. Above the Pacific Ocean, 3 Zephyrian scout ships descended toward the surface, their crews confident in their superiority. They had no idea that Special Forces operative Nam Hae-jin was already aboard one of their vessels. Hae-jin had been selected for the boarding mission because of her unique skills. A former Olympic gymnast turned elite soldier, she could move through the alien ship's energy-based architecture like a ghost. Her team of 12 specialists had trained for months to infiltrate Zephyrian vessels. The alien ships were works of art, constructed from crystalline materials that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But they had a weakness: their energy-based security systems couldn't detect humans who had been treated with quantum-dampening nanoparticles. Team Alpha in position, Hae-jin whispered into her radio. Beginning assault on the command center. Her weapons were specifically designed for this mission: modified quantum resonance rifles that could disrupt the aliens' energy forms and trap them in matter states. Each shot created a field of unstable space-time that forced energy beings to become solid for approximately 10 seconds. The first Zephyrian crew member never saw her coming. One moment it was a being of pure light, floating through the ship's corridors. The next moment, Hae-jin's weapon fired, and the alien found itself trapped in a crystalline body, unable to return to its energy form. Target neutralized, she reported, standing over the remains of what had once been a being of pure energy. The gods can bleed, after all. The psychological impact on the Zephyrians was devastating. For 3,000 years, they had been the hunters, the conquerors, the beings that other species feared. Now they were the ones being hunted. On the flagship, Commander Valthera received reports of the boarding action with growing horror. "They are inside our ships," she transmitted to her fleet. "The primitives have found a way to board our vessels without detection." The response from her subordinates was chaotic, filled with something the Zephyrians had never experienced: panic. For the first time in their existence, they felt fear. They watched as their seemingly invincible fleet was torn apart by weapons that seemed to anticipate their every move. "Perhaps we should withdraw," suggested Sub-Commander Kelthor. "Request reinforcements from the core worlds." "No," Valthara said, her form pulsing with desperate energy. "We are the celestial hierarchy. We do not retreat from primitives." But even as she spoke, another scout ship exploded in the distance, its crystalline hull shattered by human weapons. The humans were not just fighting them, they were systematically destroying everything the Zephyrians had built over millennia. On Earth, reports came in from around the globe. Human forces were pushing the aliens back on every front. The beings who had once seemed like gods were now fleeing from human soldiers armed with weapons that could kill the divine in her command post. Nam Hae-jin prepared for the next boarding action. All teams prepare for Operation Godslayer, or going after their flagship. The hunt was no longer about defending Earth. It had become about proving that humanity was the apex predator in a universe full of false gods. "Commander." Valthara floated in the command center of her flagship, her once radiant form now flickering. with unstable energy, scars across her being pulsed with dark light, reminders of humanity's weapons that could wound the divine. Around her, the last surviving members of the celestial hierarchy gathered, their perfect forms all bearing similar marks of battle. "We have lost too much," Sub-Commander Kelthar transmitted, his energy signature weaker than it had been months ago. "Perhaps we should withdraw and request reinforcements from the core worlds." "No," Velthara's response carried the weight of desperate fury. "We are the celestial hierarchy. We do not retreat from primitives. We end this now." She had made a decision that would either save her people or destroy them completely. The remaining Zephyrians would combine their power into a single, devastating attack. They would crack the planet's crust itself, turning Earth into a molten wasteland where no life could survive. "All units, prepare for final convergence," she commanded. "We will channel our combined energy directly into the planet's core. If we cannot rule them, we will ensure they can never threaten another species." On Earth, Colonel Bei Jungsik stood in the primary control center of humanity's most secret project. The quantum mirror network had been under construction for 2 years, built using technology reverse-engineered from captured Zephyrian equipment. Dr. Choi Yunji had designed it as humanity's final gambit, a way to turn the aliens' own power against them. "Energy surge detected from the alien fleet," reported Technician Park Min-jae. "They're charging up for something big." Jungsik studied the readouts with calm eyes. "Power levels? Beyond anything we've seen before. They're combining the energy output of their entire remaining fleet." "Good," Jungsik said simply. "Dr. Choi, are the mirrors ready?" Dr. Choi Yunji stood beside a massive control panel, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "All 2,000 mirror stations are online. The quantum resonance field is stable. We're ready to redirect whatever they throw at us." The quantum mirrors were humanity's greatest achievement, devices that could capture energy attacks and redirect them with perfect precision. But they had never been tested against the combined power of an entire alien fleet in space. The Zephyrian ships began to glow with increasing intensity. The beings of pure energy were pouring everything they had into this final attack. Their combined power was enough to shatter continents and boil oceans. "Firing solution confirmed," Velthara transmitted. "Target the planet's core. End this." The energy beam that erupted from the alien fleet was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. It was the concentrated power of 50 beings who had once been worshipped as gods, focused into a single point of annihilation. The beam struck Earth's atmosphere with the force of a dying star. But instead of penetrating to the planet's core, the energy encountered something unexpected. The quantum mirrors activated simultaneously, creating a network of reflective fields that caught the divine energy and held it. For a moment, the beam hung suspended in Earth's atmosphere, its terrible power contained by human technology. "Now," Jungsik commanded, "the mirrors didn't just reflect the energy, they amplified it." The Zephyrian attack was redirected and magnified, sent back toward the alien fleet with twice its original power. The beings who had tried to crack a planet found their own divine energy turned against them. The first ship to die was Velthara's flagship. The amplified energy beam struck the crystalline hull and tore through it like paper. The commander's perfect form was consumed by her own power, her 3,000-year existence ending in a burst of chaotic light. One by one, the remaining Zephyrian ships were destroyed by their own attack. The beings who had once ruled the galaxy were consumed by the very energy they had tried to use to destroy humanity. The last Zephyrian transmission was not sent to Earth, to the Galactic Council on the far side of the galaxy. Sub-Commander Kelthar, dying in the wreckage of his ship, used his final moments to send a warning. "Do not engage the humans," his message said. "They are not a species to be conquered. They are a plague of war made manifest. They do not fight for resources or territory. They fight because they are afraid, and their fear makes them more dangerous than any weapon we possess." In the aftermath, Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of humanity's first space-capable warship, watching the debris from the alien fleet drift through space. Round him, technicians led by Dr. Shinarium worked frantically to salvage alien technology before it could be lost to the void. Sir, reported Intelligence Officer Li Jinwu, monitoring communications from across the galaxy, receiving transmissions from dozens of star systems. Other species are declaring our solar system a forbidden zone. Admiral Kim nodded grimly. Good. Let them fear us. We've learned that we're not alone in the universe, and our response is not wonder or excitement, but preparation. Gods can bleed, then gods can die, and humanity will be ready for whatever comes next. The celestial hierarchy retreated to the galactic core, but across the galaxy, the species began to whisper of the demon spawn of Earth, the species that had committed the ultimate blasphemy. They had killed their gods and made themselves the thing that other civilizations would come to fear in the dark. Between stars, humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as supplicants, but as apex predators.